crowd control, all kinds of games are supported, so I definitely encourage everyone to check. But as I'm talking about this, we are off to a start here. Both of our runners starting at Link's house, both getting their 300 rupees right away, so we'll see where this goes.
Now, of course, all of the numbers that you see on the screen, rupees, bombs, arrows, hearts even, depending on if you prefer to look at hearts as numerical values from practice hack habits, all of those can be influenced by you, the audience. So if you want to take away rupees or give them more, potentially sniping Zora from them, that's on the table. Some of you may be looking to do so, but there is a little bit to be spoken about when it comes to the delay. Keep in mind that while there's no real latency with the crowd control app and what you click and what happens to them in real life, there is some delay with setting up a restream. So if you really want to snipe them, you might be needing to actually watch their stream as well to know when to time them.
Yeah, you definitely need to, adjust for some delay timing here. And while we're talking about this, we're already finding Moon Pearl and Uncle, which is, a pretty good find for a very early start here.
Yeah, this being open mode, they're going to immediately save and quit and go right to the sanctuary. We're going to avoid the castle for now, and they are step for step with each other. And we're already seeing our first effects come in. A bomb quickly being added to Ben Creighton and immediately being removed. Chad being a little bit vicious.
Yeah, if you look at the supplies here, and we see on Ben Creighton's stream, he has the little log file that displays everything that's happening when the crowd control there on his stream. Apparently someone added some bombs and removed a lot of bombs at the same time, so he's at 0 bombs right now. The rupee and arrow count seems to be the same, but right now Koi is ahead of 4 bombs.
Yeah, and if you were to accidentally try to take like more bombs than you have, they do stack so that the next bomb that he picks up will be deleted. So, I mean, if you're really looking to put him in the hole, that would cost him at least 50 rupees to buy 10, and he might not even walk away with them.
Yeah, and even though right now it might seem like taking away the bombs isn't such a big deal because they have enough money to buy some new ones. Oh, speaking of, they're finding the Cane of Samaria here at the mushroom spot for Koi at least. Ben Crichton picking that up as well.
There's some pretty interesting item locations, for early game. At least we have a weapon at this point, and we're really not that far away from being able to go into the Dark World.
Yeah, definitely not the greatest weapon, but a weapon is a weapon. As you said, you can put down a block, you can explode the block to shoot stuff in 4 directions. So we definitely got some way to defend or attack. We'll see what else we can find here in Kakariko. Both of the guys seem to be going to Kakariko right away after checking out all the Lost Woods locations.
And it appears that both of them have enough bombs to do all their Kakariko checks. You, of course, can still have an influence on that. It would be an absolute shame to walk all the way past the bomb shop and then have to buy bombs and walk back and double back. So if you're looking to add little small annoyances to our runners, and perhaps you are, I mean, I know that both of these runners are bringing a lot of their own personal viewers to, and it shows in what they're doing to the runners right now.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, right now it looks like both of our runners are pretty okay on rupees as well as bombs, but as Udai said, you guys here in the chat have all the influence on how well they're doing on bombs and rupees. You can remove or add as much as you want if you want to invest that much, and you can make it a little harder for them as it seems right now.
Now, veteran CC watchers or crowd control watchers will know that it's all about when, where, and how. And there are still plenty of opportunities to do much more annoying things than, say, give or take bombs. I'm looking at that nearly 500 rupee count, and we may have some pretty easy opportunities, unless you find 300 in the well.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if we're looking at the rupee counts of both of our runners, they're both over like 700, which is definitely more than enough to pay the bottle. And as Udai said, if you want to troll them a little bit when they want to go up to Zora and check out what's happening there for 500 rupees, you can take away some rupees and, suddenly they don't have enough and have to go find something somewhere else.
Now, one thing I'm definitely looking out for is whether or not they're going to do the South Shore after this, and whether or not either of them will find flippers in time to do a fake flipper, because if so, I will absolutely be doing at least pooling towards a Cuckoo Storm to try and interfere with the fake flipper. It's my personal favorite.
Oh man, a Cuckoo Storm when you're trying to fake flipper, that's really kind of a nightmare, to be honest, because you're really trying to set up that one little trick, and you know, Cuckoo's constantly trying to pick up your face. Not a good deal.
Well, we've done our Kakariko stuff. It appears that we have some more rupees on the library, so we're probably never going to enter that again.
Yeah, I mean, you know, usually in Rando you'd say, okay, that's 50 rupees on the library, who cares about that? But as we've said before, you guys have a lot of influence on their rupee and other counts, you know, arrows, bombs, and so on. So those 50 rupees might become important at some point in the race, depending on what you guys decide.
Well, a swift save and quit for Koi after having witnessed the 20 rupees on the race game, heading back towards the South Shore, it appears, and Ben Creighton not very far behind.
Yeah, it looks like so far our runners are pretty, you know, in step on what they're doing. Both not really too interested in the 20 rupees on the race game. We're seeing a map check from Ben Crichton, which shows us that desert is apparently the green pendant. I didn't really catch anything else, to be honest, because it was way too quick for my old brain.
I believe that we saw 6 crystal at Hera, and it was definitely crystal number 1 at Eastern.
All right, so we've got a green pendant and 2 crystals in the light world, which really isn't too bad of a if you were playing normal rando. Of course, as we've said many times before, you guys can influence all this stuff way much by donating all the coins that you have and choosing something. We see Koi picking up his first glove here for the mushroom. That's pretty interesting, if you ask me.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly an obvious place to go right away. I mean, yes, picking up the mushroom can put you in that direction, but as you see Ben Creighton doing, there's a lot in the South Shore that you can do, including the mini Moldorm cave, so that's an interesting choice to make.
Yeah, personally, I probably wouldn't have checked the witch that quickly, but apparently it wasn't the worst of choices because, you know, that glove can come in very handy.
And Koi did immediately follow the progression from that, using the glove to get to the back half of Escape here, taking these 3 chests. Whether or not that's a boon to him is yet to be seen. We do get a key that could take us further back in the dark, and Koi appears to be doing so.
Yeah, looks like he's not scared at all, checking out the back of Escape and then going backwards through the Dark Cross, even managing to go through a bunch of dark runes here. Currently trying to kill the key rat, so he grabs the key that he needs, and it looks like he's alright. And we're finding the second glove on Ben Creighton's side here in the mini Moldorm cave, so we're technically already at the Mitz level. This is pretty crazy if you ask me.
Not only that, but he also finds the flute in there. So that's an interesting divergence between the two of them. Immediately very different routes. However, if you're looking at Cuckoo Storm, Ben Creighton not quite going into the fake flippers yet. However, he may decide to do that after his Ice Rock Cave. You could also do it just because I mean, it's funny.
Exactly. I mean, a Cuckoo Storm never hurt anybody except for the players, which is, you know, realistically why we're all here. So what's holding you back, guys?
Well, Koi is taking advantage of the Samaria block to see what's going on, did not see what was in the chest, and Ben Creighton picking up the first bottle, a blue potion, in the Ice Rock Cave. Topically thematical, I guess.
Yeah, not too bad. You know, you're always hoping to find something in there, and a blue potion isn't the worst. A free blue potion is pretty nice, and your first bottle, which means you can technically check sick hit. You know, I think that's a pretty good find.
Interesting to have rewarding logic progression in both directions. Unfortunately for Ben, not going to be able to get the Titan's Mitts in this particular route. Due to having the flute, might actually end up putting off that check. However, we'll be quick with the flute.
Yeah, I mean, as you've said, with the that we've seen so far, and of course all the influence that the chat can have with the crowd. It's going to be pretty interesting to see where these guys are going. We were obviously seeing Koi here currently trying to make his way through the front of his cave, killing the blue guard with a Kena Samaria block, while Ben Crichton is opting to spawn at the Sanctuary and probably go to Kakariko Village, I would assume.
Yeah, certainly seems likely. And we'll have access to more of the overworld, or at least quickly have access to the overworld compared to Koi, although I would think at this point Koi is likely to go to Mini Moldorm immediately after this, so I think they may both end up in the Dark World pretty similar time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'd be very surprised to see Koi do anything else but what you just said. We see Ben Crichton activating his flute, which is definitely not a bad idea. And just to remind you guys, you are always free to, spend some coins to deactivate his flute again. So he's gonna have to come back here and activate it again, which is a lot more annoying than you would think.
Yes, the eternal struggle. See, that's something that shows up every single time in crowd control, and you gotta understand, it's really a head game. The only way that you can get Ben Crichton off of his game is to make sure that his flute is immediately deactivated, and also to do so when he's in the middle of something important.
For sure, but for now, he manages to flute to 4 back to Link's house, and it looks like he's going towards the uncle, while Koi is checking out what's happening in the dam.
So that'll be another opportunity for a Kuko Storm if you're looking to try to disrupt Koi, who is probably very likely to follow the fake flipper, given that we just saw a dark room out of him. However, it wouldn't be unreasonable to see him do that after the ice rock cave instead.
Yeah, most definitely, and considering how early these guys found the Moon Pearl, the fake flipper to the Waterfall Fairy is definitely not a bad choice. There's 2 items in there that are technically out of sequence, but definitely not a bad choice to check out.
And of course, they do have the consideration of how many rupees they currently have available to them. That might actually be part of what they're considering for whether or not they're going to go do that. Ben is definitely sitting on plenty of rupees, but seemed to prefer the save and quit route, having found a bottle, making Kakariko more rewarding.
Yeah, certainly. Both of our guys here definitely far above 500 rupees for now. You guys have it in your power to change their rupee count as well as all the other counts. So if you feel like they shouldn't go to Zora, or if you want to really troll them just before Zora, feel free to, reduce their rupee count a little bit.
And it appears that at some point Ben picked up a sword. Did you happen to catch that?
I did not. That's, how did I miss that?
Perhaps that was in Mini Moldorm Cave. That's probably what I would have missed. But I also wanted to bring up that it seems like Koi's currently at 300 out of 500 coins for a Kuko attack. I think, chat, that we can make this happen. We're pretty close there already.
Yeah, we're certainly getting there.
Just to address a question in chat about how you know who each effect is going to, they have an icon on the crowd control menu on the actual stream. You click on their icon, and then you can see where their progress is on each effect individually.
Yep. And we're also seeing Koi now activating his flute, which Ben Crichton did a little bit earlier. Again, you guys are free to spend some coins to deactivate the respective flutes of whoever you feel like should have a deactivated flute, and they're gonna have to go back to Kakariko Village and activate it once again. While I'm talking about this, we're seeing a map check from Koi, which looked like a red crystal at Swamp Palace.
And we also had Pendants at Misery Mire and Ice Palace, which is an interesting combo. Unfortunately, we already have the Kena Samaria, so if we're hoping to just isolate something because of that, that didn't help.
An interesting early Mire shed check here from Koi, finding a single arrow and 10 arrows. So that, even without the crowd control, that's a little bit trolly, I would say.
Yeah, you never really look forward to a bundle of sticks, particularly knowing that your friends in chat could probably bail you out if you're a really short one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm hearing some chickens here. Koi is looking like there's a bunch of weird heads flying. It is indeed a cuckoo star.
There are a couple of different sprites that you can end up seeing, but this is quite the bane of anybody trying to get into Ice Rock Cave. I mean, it does help that there's a little bit more latency, but these crabs do 2 hearts of damage, and ooh,
yikes. Speaking of 2 hearts of damage, Koi just took that right to the face and died, unfortunately, just before the Ice Rock Cave. So he's gonna probably be a while, unless he immediately flutes back to 8 and tries again. Oh, the chickens are still coming.
he grabbed the wrong bird.
Poor Koi. There we go. He manages to flute away, flutes back to 8, so he definitely wants to check out what's happening in Ice Rock Cave. But the cuckoo, I guess the flying heads, are still attacking him pretty ferociously.
Yeah, and that appears to be the end of that Cuckoo Storm effect. It is possible to actually stack them if you're feeling particularly generous, but it looks like we got the effect that we were looking for. I wonder how Koi is going to respond to his healing item in return.
Oh man, and Ben Crichton finds the hammer on the old man here, bringing him back, making available another spawn point as well as getting a free heart. So if you feel like, Ben Crichton is a little bit too ahead here with the hammer and the sword in his hand, feel free to spend some coins to, trip him up a little bit.
And it's an excellent turn of events for Ben Crichton as well, picking up the mirror, then or being gifted a sword and getting the hammer in that sequence. We'll be able to explore all of the mountain now.
Yeah, he's definitely in a pretty good position, despite, being at the mercy of the chat, more or less. We see Koi checking out the desert ledge, only has a piece of heart, while Ben Crichton is checking out the Spectacled Rock Cave. Nothing that he really wants. There's also only 20 rupees on top of Spectacle Rock, so I'm assuming we're going to skip most of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing of real importance at that point. However, Koi will get a chance to check out the isolated Agina's Cave, which we already know, thanks to Ben, that the hammer is locked behind the lamp. This could potentially be the lamp, but is actually going to end up being 5 rubies instead. So it looks like Eastern area likely has.
And while we're talking about that, we see Ben Crichton checking out Tower of Hera. He figures out that the basement only has 10 arrows, so now he's gonna be checking some hints, and then he's hoping to find a big key, which he finds right here, so he's not gonna be, forced to check out the basement so far. We won't know for sure until, he gets all the way up to the top. He might still have to come back for the basement, but not before he finds a fire.
It's the common, logic laughing at us, I feel like, sometimes when we play Randomizer, because this would be a very funny place to find the lamp, only to be forced to go to the basement and not get anything at all, which would be, I think, hilarious, but, it's also unfortunate.
Oh man, we see a mirror from Koi here in the back of Sahasrara's hut. Not bad. A pretty good find. Makes it a lot easier to come back from the Dark World, but before we can talk about that, we'll need some Dark World access in the first place.
Well, in the meantime, the crowd being an absolute mad group of people because they've inverted the buttons on Ben Crichton, and he unfortunately had his mirror equipped, being nearly 3/4 of the way up the tower, and we'll repeat the clock.
I feel like that's a pretty good showcase of what you can actually do with a CC race here. It might not seem like a lot, but just inverting controls or changing some other small things will really trip up the runners big time, especially if they're not expecting it. So keep going with whatever you're doing. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
And as we've been talking the last few minutes, I guess we both probably missed this Master Sword that Ben Crichton somehow has. It appears Chad is being very generous to Ben. Although I've also been alerted that both of these runners are named Ben, so I'm just going to refer to Ben Crichton as Ben. but just so you know, this is the Battle of the Bens.
Yeah, it looks like this is the Battle of the Ben, so we'll see who the better Ben. Of course, if you're talking about Bens, we can't forget, Ajneb, who is a very well-known runner. Not in this CC race, of course, but there's apparently a lot of Bens running rando.
I've never considered that, although now that you have mentioned it, it's pretty interesting insight. And we also have an ice physics, which is really tough for one of the two Bens.
Oh boy, ice physics are probably one of the more annoying things that can happen to you. Looks like Ben Crichton is doing a pretty good job of killing Moldon. Gets him in the fast phase, but immediately with a spin gets him down. So 10 arrows and our first crystal for Ben Crichton, while Koi is on his way to what looks to be Tower of Hera.
I'm really impressed by that fight. That's a very difficult fight to do with ice physics, and it's not like we had exactly the best possible weaponry. I mean, hammer's definitely nice, but Master Sword, and it turns out using sword spins worked out really well.
Yeah, he definitely did a good job killing that boss. Currently being trolled by the Dead Rocks. As anyone who's ever played a rando seed, Dead Rocks are definitely the worst enemies.
Shoot, I think anybody who's played A Link to the Past feels that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame anyone for, wanting Dead Rocks removed. These guys are definitely annoying. If they don't run into you, you can slash them, and then they turn to stone, and they'll just block your way, and, they're kind of still annoying in death, so to speak.
I can't remember. I'm trying to remember if it was Powder or Quake. There's some way to actually change them into something else, I believe, isn't there?
You can certainly powder them, and they'll turn into like weird. I don't even know what to describe them as, but you can powder them. And I believe Quake or something has pretty much the same effect on them. So you're right on both accounts.
Although I think the one downside to it is that you can't actually do that when they're frozen, which makes it kind of like, never useful, but, cool though. I mean, like if you had a whole bunch of them and you're really worried, like say with ice physics.
I definitely agreed. If you're planning to use powder or quake or whatever it is on the Dead Rocks, you have to be prepared for it and willing to do it before you stun them or turn them into.
Well, for those of you out there who are possibly not familiar with it, Koi is actually somebody who recently created a tutorial for a new discovery in A Link to the Past, something that we hadn't known about. It's actually possible to warp or use a tile. I don't know. I don't know how I'd exactly describe it. You clip into a pot and fall down into the fairy room at the bottom of the tower, which takes you to the top after warping again. Koi made a really nice tutorial about how to do that, and that's been kind of actually the subject of the new racing council. They ruled on that, I think, just yesterday.
Yeah, the Herapocalypse has been ruled as allowed because it essentially makes you able to skip the big key with, of course, the risk of also skipping the big chest. So if you're willing to take that risk, you might want to do it. But it's not quite as easy as it sounds. So we'll have to see how it works out, or if any of our players here will take advantage of that.
And I'm kind of surprised, but it looks like Koi also has a tempered sword. Chat's being very generous to both of our runners for their weaponry. And that's going to be essential for them, as I'm imagining pretty soon we're going to see them take on some much more difficult dungeons.
Yeah, and it looks like, speaking of difficult dungeons and, the equipment that you need for it, it looks like Koi is a little bit ahead there. Ben Crichton's still on 3 hearts and a Master Sword, while Koi is on 6 hearts and a Tempered Sword, as you said. So he is definitely, a little bit advantaged as far as that goes.
And when we did see, Sinak throw down the gauntlet in chat saying that he had the coins to throw, and he did absolutely take hearts away from Ben. So it looks like, our chat is scheming. And look at that. As we speak, there is a Tempered Sword for Ben Crichton.
Yep, as we see on the little display there on Ben Crichton's stream, he just got an upgraded sword and an upgraded shield. So he now supposedly has a Tempered Sword as well as a fire. While Koi picks up his hookshot from the Death Mountain Cave.
Yeah, so both of our runners have pretty much all the same progressive items. Something to point out as well if you're new to crowd control, you're never going to be able to give or take away regular progression items, say the things that get us through dungeons, with the exceptions of, say, swords, which you need for Ganon primarily, and a couple of specific curtains. But you're going to absolutely be able to change these circumstances in which they're approaching each of these dungeons, how difficult it'll be in terms of their safety. So that's kind of what we're looking to target here. And our chat has done a really great job of that so far. We'd love to see more of the shenanigans. Absolutely. These runners are highly anticipating all of the hilarity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, whenever you agree to do a crowd control race, you're expecting the worst. And we're definitely hoping for the worst, just because it makes it definitely more interesting for us to commentate and more interesting to watch. And, not to forget, it makes it a lot of fun as well if you guys make it a little harder for the person ahead, or support the person behind a little bit with a couple more hearts or another sword or some other stuff that you might find helpful.
Well, I am seeing some murmurs in the chat about Ben Crichton potentially missing the hookshot cave, and if that's the case, Koi has a interesting opportunity here in a moment. We'll opt to check Super Bunny first, but Ben actually picks up the lamp in the chess game.
Yeah, so no more dark rooms for Ben Crichton. Usually a thing that I would say most of the higher profile rando runners don't have a big problem with. Dark rooms aren't usually a big deal. But if you do have a lamp, you A, have a fire sword, which is very important, and B, it makes it at the very least faster to get through all these dark rooms, if not possible. If you're, having a little bit of trouble doing dark rooms without a lamp.
I guess the major downside to finding that lamp is Pendant Mire is now fully unlogic. Actually, I'm not sure about that. Did we see the, we didn't see the pendant for that, did we?
I don't believe so. I know that both of our guys only have Quake so far, so I'm not sure if they can actually get into Mire, but if Quake is indeed the Mire medallion, they could theoretically get through there. And speaking of, both of our guys here, oh boy, apparently Ben Crichton just got all of his 10 bombs removed, so he's back to 0. But I was just going to say, both of these guys close to 1,000 rupees, or for Ben Crichton's case, over 1,000 rupees. So if you actually want to stop them from buying or getting more bombs, you might want to remove some of those rupees. These guys seem to be pretty rich right now.
Yeah, it may seem like an insurmountable amount, but the reality is that as a crowd, we can absolutely pull that off. Everybody chips in, takes away, I guess, 10, 20 rupees, and yeah, altogether, we could easily pull that off.
We're seeing another bottle here in Checkerboard Cave while Ben Crichton is finishing up his checks for the front of TT. Finds the big key in the very last chest that he has access to, so I'm assuming he's going to continue his way. Alright, and Koi fluting to Kakariko Village as well, while Ben Crichton is making his way through the rest of TT. No bombs, a lot of arrows. I think that's currently his max amount as well, so 30 arrows, not a whole lot more that he could pick up.
Yeah, I find the bomb removal to be pretty interesting. There is one required bomb usage in this dungeon, Thieves Town. However, you can pick up a bomb in that room, and Ben Crichton immediately having the next bomb he picked up removed may actually have several stacked against him at the moment.
Yeah, it seems like Ben Crichton is not having too much luck with his bomb pickup. Whatever he picks up, it's immediately being removed. And as you've said, he needs at least one bomb to bomb open the floor. There is technically a bomb in the room where you have to bomb. But, it looks like you guys aren't too merciful in this guy, so he might be stuck in that room without any bombs until you either give him some or he finds some somewhere.
Hey, and that's just how the crowd control crumbles, and we do see actually some response from that in the chat. A bomb being added, but Sinag being absolutely vicious. not giving even a moment, actually removing a bomb extra for every bomb added. Yeah, you got something against Ben, or you're really for Ben?
Now the question here is, do you have a problem with Ben Crichton, or do you have a problem with bombs?
You know, I've heard the argument made before that it's all really about bomb safety. And look at that, Ben actually pulls off a bomb usage in the small window between when a bomb was added and taken. Very carefully done, actually.
Yeah, very nice from him. He manages to put down a bomb and pick it up before anyone can remove all his bombs. So no matter how many bombs you remove, if there's a bomb above your head or you've picked up a bomb, that's no way you're going to be able to take that away. And as far as looks now, someone was very generous and gifted Ben Crichton with infinite bombs for now, at the very least.
Yeah, that effect lasts for 1 minute and is effectively a trump card against people taking your bombs, as they cannot actually remove infinite bombs. So, I mean, even if there was a struggle there with the menu buffer, Ben would have eventually been able to do it, thanks to the generosity of chat.
Yeah, and while Ben is starting to pick up the maiden here, we're seeing Koi making his way up to the bombable floor. He has currently 6 bombs, so he shouldn't be in any trouble whatsoever to bomb open the floor and go right. I'm assuming that's going to save him some time over Ben Crichton, but, you know, the last word hasn't been spoken. You guys are still free to determine his fate as much as you want.
Just keep in mind as well that there is a slight delay between what you're going to see on a restream and what happens when you actually click the button. Of course, the app itself works perfectly fine as far as instantaneousness goes, but there is natural delay whenever you do any kind of restream. So if you want to snipe somebody on one of these races, you're probably best off having their streams open as well, so you can make that timing happen a little bit more precisely.
Yeah, for sure. You either want to have the individual streams open, be closer to the timing, or you just want to, you know, buffer a little bit ahead. So if you feel like someone should be dying in 30 seconds, you know, you might want to put in your coins now and then hope for the timing to work out correctly.
That would be an extra mean way to do it as well, because blind is a really punishing fight to redo. Ben actually taking advantage of having really great sword beam strats and not even taking any hits at all despite being a little bit off script. I was really impressed by that fight.
Yeah, very nicely done, and you know, grabs the second crystal here. So we've got Ben Crichton on the second crystal while Koi is picking up the maiden, so not too far behind at all. Both of our runners here currently on reasonably equal footing, I would say.
All right, well, Koi's attempt at blind coming up ahead, walking into it with a lot more health to spare. However, has an opportunity to do a bit of a mimic fight here as well, seeing as that sprite is actually very similar to the main sprite. Koi doing a much more traditional scripted version of the fight. If you didn't know this, blind is going to behave exactly the same way as long as you do the exact same actions. There's basically no RNG involved in this fight. Every 4th fireball will track your position, and so you can take advantage of that. A slightly off-script fight in the last phase, but definitely an excellent fight. Very close to as fast as it can be.
Yeah, certainly. We've got now Koi with the 2 crystals as well, while Ben Crichton has finished up his digging game, not really finding anything of worth here. He seems to be making his way back to the frog, probably going to pay that guy and do the whole blacksmith's chain. We'll see if he decides to also take back the purple chest. But first he's going to be checking Sick Kid, it looks like.
And major props to chat trying to attempt to disrupt Koi's bomb throw there with the Kuko Storm. A very creative use of the Kuko Storm, because that bomb, if you drop it, will definitely do damage to you and make you use another bomb, take more time. It's an easy way to get inside the head of the runner and try and frustrate them a little bit. So I definitely appreciate the attempt there. And it looks like we're going to have a Kuko Storm after this flute activation from Ben Crichton.
Yeah, and Ben Crichton here activating his flute. I'm not sure if it's his first time. It looks to be his first time because I think if he had already activated it, the little chicken guy will be gone from the statue already. But we definitely got some weird skeleton chickens here flying all over the screens of both of our Koi making his way to the digging game while Ben Crichton is trying to get that frog back to where he belongs.
And we have double Cocoa Storms going on right now.
Oh man, and the digging game with the Cuckoo Storm is definitely no fun. As you can see, despite having 6 hearts, he's down to 1.5. The Cuckoo Storm running out just at the right time here for him to not.
Well, certainly a nervous experience for both of our runners. Ben Creighton having equal difficulty with the hammer pegs. Unfortunately, without the boots, you can't really dash through these anyway. So this is an arduous journey with that blacksmith frog.
But Crichton really needs to be careful. He's down to half a heart, so one more Cuckoo hit will do him in. Oh, and there it.
That's a tough break. I mean, you only got 4 hearts to work with. They're going to do half a heart each time. I mean, look at how many Cuckoos there are.
Yeah, and as you can see, the little blacksmith doesn't really give a crap. He just sticks with you despite spawning at the mountain cave here, fluting away immediately. Not a bad choice. This should be able to. This should enable him to bring back the guy without much problem. But looks like the Cyanag here already paying more for another Cuckoo Storm for Ben Crichton, so he is definitely not out of the woods.
It's not so much about having the chickens on screen, it's about sending a message. As you know, so far, I mean, currently, these chickens are a lot more effective at killing our runners than the bosses are of these dungeons. So, I mean, I'm really not sure why Ganon doesn't just raise them free roaming across, the Dark World. That would actually be much more effective.
Yeah, and I mean, as you can see on Ben Crichton's stream, it's really not so much the damage that the chickens do, it's just how much they interrupt you. They make, almost impossible for you to pick up some of the big stones or hammer down these packs without any trouble. He's only lost 2 hearts so far, which isn't too bad, but it took him like a minute to pick up that big rock to even get to the hammer pack, so we'll see where that leads him.
Yeah, and despite being followed by a chest instead of a blacksmith, Koi actually leapfrogs ahead in progression, being able to complete most of the chain ahead of Ben Crichton thanks to the difference in the interference between those Cuckoos.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing Koi here checking out K45, only finding 5 rupees, but he's not too unhappy about all the hearts, especially with what you guys have been throwing at these runners.
That's definitely some savvy game knowledge as well. It doesn't take very long to grab those hearts. They're definitely in his path. He already took the time to mirror. So, I mean, it's definitely a smart decision, as you never know what the crowd's going to do to you next when you're running a crowd control race.
Yeah, if you're running a crowd control race, you really always have to expect the worst. Because, as we all know, Twitch chat is sometimes not very forgiving, and you guys have already shown how mean you can be. And we're barely 40 minutes into the seed, so we'll see what else these guys have to put up with.
So I just learned something that I did not know before, thanks to Skursabasa in chat. Apparently Cuckoo Storms don't end until you screen transition. I think that would be an excellent reason to consider doing one during the Zora's Domain area. Oh, and also to add, you are not able to do so in the underworld, or at least the effect will pause until you leave the underworld. So if you're in a cave, if you're in a dungeon, Cuckoo Storm doesn't do anything. It's only in the overworld.
Yeah, so make sure that the effects that you want to happen to the runners are, paid for or activated at the appropriate time. Otherwise, you might have to wait a little while or miss out on it completely.
And if you're joining us later on in the race than the start, as a reminder, if you haven't seen a crowd control race or if you haven't seen one in a while, the crowd control extension is something you activate on the Twitch player itself. You just click that little gear-shaped icon. You can actually redeem some free coins, which you can use to exchange for effects. you'll get at least 50. I think it's 50 for free per session. And if you're a subscriber to Speed Game, you can also redeem an extra 100 once a month for having that subscription. So if you want to get in on this for free, you can absolutely do so. You can pool your effects as well. So if you see something you want to see happen, absolutely chip in towards it. Just make sure you click on the correct icon for each player.
Yeah, certainly. Do not forget, if something seems, unrealistically expensive or out of reach for you, you can always pool up with other chat viewers or people who are willing to chip in to make something happen that might be really awful. And even though it's very expensive, or it seems like you might not be able to pay it alone, once you pool up, people will chime in and chip in, and sooner or later you'll get your wished effect.
Speaking of which, there is still a remaining 250 coins on the next Hugo attack for Ben Creighton. Something to keep in mind for once he leaves the dungeon. There may be an opportune moment to finish that. We talked about Zora Domain just a little bit ago, so that might be something to keep an eye out for. I do also see 380 remaining for a deactivation of the flute, and personally, I think right before the boss is a great time to do so, as you are very likely to forget that you have your flute deactivated.
Mm-hmm. Deactivating the flute is probably one of the most annoying things you can do to these guys, because it's kind of hard to keep track of if your flute's currently activated, and whenever it's deactivated you have to go back to Kakariko Village, stand there and listen to the whole jingle again and reactivate your flute. And essentially you guys can do this to these guys as much as you want and as often as you want.
Yeah, and on Koi's side, he's only 300 short of the deactivated flute, and I believe we have actually a sword debuff, just 50 shy. So there are definitely some things in progress. If you'd like to chip in towards it, you definitely have some free coins available to you if you haven't activated the extension yet.
And just to talk about the actual, routing and playing of the game as it is happening by these two guys. These guys are pretty much, neck and neck here. Koi just a slight bit ahead in the exact same dungeon that Ben Crichton is in currently, so they're really not diverging too much so far.
I like the decision to come here to Swan Palace. This has been accessible for a little bit. It's also one of the 5-6 crystals, and seeing as Tower of Hera was the other, this leads very naturally into the Pyramid Fairy. So while we have not defeated Aghanim yet and can't do the fast route, this will likely go exactly to that direction after that.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see exactly what you were just talking about. This is a perfect segue right into the other 5-6 crystal, which is Tower of Hera, as you said. And both of these guys kind of have access to that, so we'll see where this goes.
Well, Koi is in a great position to be doing this fight, having the Tempered Sword. We've not seen Boots yet in the seed, which I think both of these runners are probably not too happy about. You can't gift Boots, unfortunately. Although I wonder if that would even be gifting and deactivating Boots. Do you think that would be awful?
I
think it's just the progression part.
Yeah, probably. I feel like that would be pretty funny. I just don't know how you would reactivate the Boots again once they're deactivated.
Maybe you just have to leave them active, if you find them. You have to leave them active in rooms where they're required progressively.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Or find a different way to bonk torches in those scenarios. Alright, well, if we're going to have a timer for that, I petition to name it Kick Your Feet Up.
A chat is suggesting that deactivating the boots should be active for 1 minute. That seems pretty fair to me. I mean, fair is maybe not the right word, but you know what I mean.
I can't help but notice that we have seen quite a few things happen to Koi all at once in a short sequence. I saw a flute get deactivated, and I believe there was a sword debuff.
Let's see here. Currently only picking up some skulls and picking up an extra key to check out the left side of Swans while Ben Crichton is killing up here.
I find the choice to come back into the dungeon afterwards kind of interesting. You know, in crowd control, there's always a chance that somebody could just straight up kill you. And so you'd have to go all the way back through the dungeon. It's interesting. Maybe Koi and Ben Creighton are considering their health totals when deciding whether or not they're finishing the whole dungeon.
It looks like Ben Crichton is also gone back in the swamp. I think that, as you've said, a pretty interesting choice, because usually I feel like if people opt to skip out on left side swamp, they're gonna stick to it and not go back. They're gonna be like, all right, if there's anything on left side swamp, then whatever, I've already lost, so let's just ignore that.
All right, well, both of them are returning back into the dungeon, as we've seen. Koi has definitely got the head started on the left side checks. Thankfully, we have everything in place and did not drown the key and did not accidentally hit the wrong block, so we can do both of these at the same time. As far as what we're still looking for, I believe it's pretty much just a bow, potentially boots. We need the fire rod for Skull Woods. I'm trying to think of what else.
If our tracker is to be believed, we're also gonna be needing the ice because Turtle Rock is a crystal. So we'll have to see where all of this goes. I feel like this isn't the worst check, but it's definitely interesting to see both of these guys going back in the swamp and essentially full clearing it. I suppose, not having found the big key yet and still wanting to know what's in the big chest, it's not too unrealistic of a choice, but it's definitely an interesting one.
And I guess my mind wonders, after we do Pyramid Fairy, where would we go next? I think it almost feels natural to go Palace of Darkness, but I'm wondering if we're going to see a divergence of that. And the big chest is just a few bombs.
Just a couple of bombs. I mean, Ben Crichton currently had 10 bombs, but I'm not sure if that's really going to be the big difference.
Yeah, it appears that his bomb capacity has been upgraded. He has 20 currently.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing some discussion in chat about soft lock potential. That is absolutely a thing in crowd control. Because these things happen in real time, you could absolutely do something to the game that's not supposed to do. One particularly memorable one I've seen is killing somebody in the middle of a floor drop transition. That can absolutely ruin the camera and, and force the player to restart the dungeon.
Yeah, crowd control definitely introduces some interesting quirks to the game. If you manage to time whatever, decision or change to the game for one of these players is, if it's on the exact same frame that they screen transition or something else, maybe mirror back into the light world or whatever, there might be some interesting side effects that you maybe didn't intend, but they'll just have to deal with it.
Well, we have returned to the overworld. Koi taking out the hammer to go across the bridge. We will have our Pyramid Fairy check in a moment here. Ben Crichton also getting disappointed by some bombs, mirroring the heck out of there. Has an opportunity to do something different if he wishes, although I think at this point it's been pretty set in stone that this is the right way to go.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said earlier, I mean, we're barely 50 minutes into the seed and Koi's already bringing the big bomb to the Pyramid Fairy. We'll have to see if it actually means anything or if he gets anything meaningful out of it. It's definitely interesting. I also feel like Koi is currently being attacked by a Cuckoo Storm once again, even though it's a bunch of fire shields and God knows what else these mutants are flying at him.
Nobody said when we crossed into the Golden Land, aka the Dark World, that, everything would turn out right. And canonically speaking, if you don't have a Moon Pearl, you would transform into something. Unfortunately for Koi, well, actually, no, not unfortunately. We find a Ether, so Misery Mire becomes accessible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely something. There's some more shields flying at the poor guy. But he seems to dodge them all right, makes it out of the screen, and as we've learned earlier, you definitely need a screen transition to make that Cuckoo Storm stop.
That's excellent. I mean, it's not even just one shield, too. It's both the fighter shield and the fire shield.
Yeah, it's so weird looking. I mean, I personally would want Cuckoo Storms on every screen just to see what kind of weird, horrible Lovecraftian nightmares we're gonna come up with here.
The fact that this game even works as crowd controlled is honestly astonishing to me. And if you have never actually done a crowd control yourself, folks out there, you can actually do this via both emulator and through SD to SNES. So you have, both emulation and physical cartridge options. The world of A Link to the Past has certainly changed a lot in the last few years.
Interesting to see that both of our players are checking flipper spots, sort of, kind of. Koi checking out what Quakefish has for us, nothing really too important, and Alpine in the Waterfall Fairy Cave, only getting some more money. He definitely is more. Ben Crichton checking out the hobo, meanwhile, not really finding anything of worth either.
The one upside of that is you do have peace of mind knowing that there's nothing else there. Ben will actually... I'm trying to figure out where he's going south again. I'm wondering where this is going to take him. Doesn't seem obvious at first glance.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick up the big bomb as well. I mean, I don't really know what else he would find over, or why he would walk back here. And it looks like he is walking into the bomb shop while Koi is swimming over to Zora.
Oh, I had thought that he had already done that.
Once again, a really bad deal from Zora. You pay 500 to get 5 back. Not really something that I'd want.
When people say a 1% return on investment, I think they have a very different idea of what you're going to get out of that.
But on the other hand, we do find a fire rod on Zora's Slash for Koi, so that is a second fire source, and also our way into Skull Woods, which is also a crystal. So, not the worst choice here.
So the immediate benefit, of course, for Koi is that there's a more obvious logical progression to follow. Ben, if for any reason doesn't go to Zora Ledge right away, will potentially be led astray and go to possibly Misery Mire next.
Yeah, there's certainly more available to Ben than just Zora Ledge. We can only hope that this is where it leads him next. Both of our players here opting to throw a bottle into the Fat Fairy water. Both of them, I think, getting a green potion out of it, which is semi-useful, I suppose.
He may be doing that in anticipation of Palace of Darkness, actually. Not having the bow, that may be considering a potion camera unlock glitch.
Yeah, he definitely could be. It looks like currently he is trying to finish up all the escapes, so he's going to be going to Darkcross here. He does have a keys to spares. It's not a bad choice, it's just a kind of out of the way. We'll have to see what he finds in it.
Yeah, the one convenient thing is that he is already here. Was leaving the big bomb at the same time, or at least the Pyramid Fairy. So, and having the mirror for this is the best way to do it. We'll be able to return back to the entrance and do the other part of the escape if he wishes. We're finding a dig spot for Koi, not too productive, just 5 more rupees. Seeing a trend here, 5 rupees also in Darkcross, which we did not know earlier.
All the 5 rupees, and of course you'd find all of these when you're already at close to 1,000 or over 1,000 rupees in your bank. It couldn't be more useless as it is right now.
So it appears that Koi realizes that he has been gotten. Unfortunately for Koi, the flute debuff not being picked up on until well after the fact that it happened. So chat was being very stealthy about it. I appreciate your efforts. Koi probably does not.
Yeah, he was definitely playing us a song of his people for quite a while until he realized that he's gonna have to go back to this little statue here that is now missing a little duck on top. Despite activating it before, the duck still pops out, and it's all up to you guys if we're gonna see that animation some more or not in this run.
I'm also kind of impressed by the bravery of playing the flute that many times, seeing as it summons birds, and our track record with birds throughout this entire race. I'm just impressed. Koi has some cojones.
Yeah, definitely not scared of anything, and he's been attacked by a couple of different things. I mean, we've had flying skeleton chickens, we've had flying fire and fighter shields with whatever the heck attached. We've had all kinds of weird stuff flying at these guys, and he is still not backing down.
I feel like my favorite one is the thief head, from the desert.
That is, I would say, definitely the weirdest because, as annoying and as horrible as cuckoo storms can be, if you have actual heads flying at you, that's just kind of creepy.
And it's not even October yet.
Alright, Ben Crichton getting a free blue potion. That's a lot better than a free green potion, so we'll see what he does with that. Walking up to Zora, so he's going to be checking out his Zora stuff, and is going to be picking up his fire up, most likely. Well, we see Koi putting his fire up to good use, making it into the back of Skullwood.
Now, Skullwood's having not that many items to check for, but certainly nothing you'd want to skip. It is very annoying to get all the way back to this later part of the dungeon if you're going to pretty much do all of it anyway. So Koi will take the time to grab this chest before doing the Mothula fight, even though it's required. Some people may opt to do this afterwards, but I think he just doesn't want to forget about it later.
Yeah, it's not the worst choice to do this before you can just mirror back as he just did, and then you really only need to walk over this bridge. But as we all know, the Mothula fight can be pretty annoying and hard, and it's in your guys' hands to make it even worse for Koi if you feel like he's too far ahead of Ben Crichton right now. So feel free to take away his magic, make it, less favorable for him, do whatever you want, but make sure to get it in fast.
Yeah, we haven't seen so far yet in this race is a one-hit KO mode, and we definitely haven't seen inverted D-pad. Those would probably be the most lethal things to do to a runner in this stage. If I recall correctly, ice physics doesn't work on Mothula, right?
I'm not 100% sure, probably not because of the moving floor, but as you were saying earlier, an inverted D-pad on these moving floors is probably pretty hellish.
Well, Koi dispatches the moth pretty quickly and gets the last medallion of Bombos, which we definitely needed to get into Turtle Rock, so taking advantage of the logic chain. Ben Crichton, interestingly enough, had an opportunity to go into Ice Palace and opted not to, and was actually gifted silver arrows just now.
That almost feels kind of mean because both of the runners don't have any kind of bow yet, so gifting them silver arrows is pretty nice, but they have no chance of using them, so what are they going to do?
Well, I think Ben Crichton at first is going to move or probably rotate his controller 90 degrees. His D-pad has been inverted, which is a very frustrating way to play. Even in the overworld, that's just really hard to deal with. And we'll have to actually reactivate his flute. Activate his flute for the first time.
Yeah, we're seeing Ben Crichton activating his flute again while Koi is making his way through Skullwoods from the back, it seems like. We'll have to see if anyone picks up anything meaningful. So far, as you were saying earlier, Koi now having all 3 medallions, so he doesn't have to worry about any opening requirements whatsoever anymore.
Yeah, the power of exclusion usable at this point, and taking advantage of not having grabbed this chest first to actually get an easier path through that room. Very small time optimization, but very nice to see it being done. Another thing in play, not currently, but in the upcoming version 31 logic, I believe, or maybe it's going to be V32, there's consideration for putting that skull or putting that key room back into logic. Koi not going to have to do that, though. We found the ice rod.
Yeah, I do believe that comes with version 31. The pinball room is going to be randomized again, so no guaranteed key in there. As we see Ben Crichton getting a heart container gifted from the chat, finally kind of putting him on par with Koi. Koi has been ahead in the heart count in this whole seed so far as I remember.
So of course we would get the correction from Skurasabasa and Chad, who actually does a lot of these logic update videos, and thank you for those, by the way. That's part of the advanced shuffle thing, the pinball room. So that's another thing that's going to happen with this new logic update is there's going to be a lot of more customization that you can really do with your regular seed rolling. Something I think a lot of people are really excited for. going to be a little bit weird to get used to at first, but I promise it's going to make a more diverse experience for everybody in a good way.
Yeah, and as Sonic is saying, Advance will most likely be the race mode that everyone agrees on. So I feel like getting used to that pinball room not just being a guaranteed key anymore is not a bad idea.
Well, Ben Crichton taking care of the Mothula fight coming up here in just a few moments. Still an opportunity for interference from the crowd. The crowd certainly has favored Ben Crichton for effects this race, so I can't tell if that's a sign that that's like Koi's fans out here or if that's Ben Crichton's fans, because some people's fans do actually hurt them. Speaking of Sakura and Shad, like for example, getting killed 20 times in a row, it just happens. So I'm wondering if that's a show of support from either of them, or if it's just wanting to see the other person win.
All right, we're seeing Koi here making his way up Death Mountain while Ben Crichton is just finishing up Skullwood's going to be picking up his 4th crystal as well. You know, these guys, despite everything that you guys have done to them, pretty even still. Not too much of a difference here of what they've done or what progress they found. I do have to ask a very stupid question though. Did you pick up when Koi got his ice rod?
Yeah, we did find the ice rod in the big chest here in Skullwood, so it was just a few minutes ago.
Oh, alright. So I completely missed that. The ice rod, you know, usually an item that people are very happy with because it can be literally anywhere, because you only needed to defeat Trine X if a Turtle Rock is indeed a crystal, which it is in this seed. So I'm figuring Ben Crichton probably not too far behind on his ice rod once he manages to kill this horrible boss.
Well, despite low health, taking advantage of a blue potion and finishing up the fight pretty effectively, even with green mail, taking advantage of a fire rod shot to finish off the last shot.
Yeah, very nicely done, picking up his 4th crystal while Coil is making his way into Turtle Rock. We'll see how far he can. With the fire out and the hook shot in hand, it shouldn't be too much of a problem at all.
Well, here's our first look into Turtle Rock. Koi finding a small key in the bottom left corner, perhaps racking his brain to try and figure out the logic of the dungeon. It is a pretty straightforward dungeon overall. There's only so many things you can really go mode out of it, and that's if you get really lucky with certain configurations. But there are quite a lot of locations total, so the bow is actually fairly likely right now.
Yeah, I mean, the bow is maybe currently the most important item that we're still looking for. I'm not sure what else we might need, possibly the boots, but other than that, we're looking pretty good, I would say.
So something that I think Chad and everybody else may not have caught was that there was boots in this cave. I got in the middle of my sentence. Koi finds boots in the roller room. There was a unique item hint for Mimic Cave as well, so that is also a very likely position for it at this point.
Yeah, definitely grats on the boots here for Koi. So he is kind of, sort of in, you know, semi-go mode. Of course, you know, we can't ignore the bow that we're still missing, but boots a pretty good start.
Well, just an evolution away from being Ninetales, he is rapid dashing his way through this dungeon at this point. Having access to so many items to use, it's actually quite a diversity of strats you can do for these chomps. And Chat throwing down the gauntlet, giving him one-hit KO mode, making this a
yikes. And that one-hit KO mode paying off immediately. I mean, I'm not sure with Green Mail how many hits of these chain jumps he would have survived in the first place, so it was already kind of scary, but with one-hit KO mode, oh man, these chain jumps are no fun.
And to confirm what's being said in chat about the damage the chomps do, it is 4 hearts with Green Mail, so, I mean, you could buffer once, you could potentially survive, you know, in certain scenarios. So, I mean, the one-hit KO guarantees it, and will force Koi to be even more careful going forward.
Speaking of one-hit KO, Ben Crichton currently on half a heart trying to grab the big chest here in Skull Woods. He manages to pick up a heart from the skulls, I guess, but falls down a hole, so back to half a heart. Needs to be really careful not to have to redo everything in here. There we go, the ice rod for Ben Crichton as well. He's probably going to be pretty happy about that, despite everything else, you know, not looking too great for him.
So deaths abound. I mean, that's 2 deaths within just like a minute of each other between the 2 of them. We haven't seen a ton of death in the overall race. Crowd controls tend to be a bit of a bloodbath overall. But I mean, both of them have been racing pretty effectively.
Koi here deciding to check out the vanilla big key chest and gets a small key for his troubles, which essentially means, you know, it was a key for a key. It is pretty safe to skip that chest, but of course, there's no way for you to know that before you actually check it. We'll have to see if Ben Crichton decides to take that gamble and save a couple of seconds here over Koi.
You know, I mean, by the numbers, it does kind of make sense to go for it. Laser Bridge does have 4 item locations, so... And we know that there's a unique item in Mimic Cave if both of these runners have checked that hint in Swamp. So it's a good gamble to make, I would think, but it could still burn you.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad choice. It just, you know, theoretically, it could save you a couple of seconds, I suppose. We'll have to see what the unique item in Mimic Cave actually is, and Koi is going to be showing us in just a second here. And at this point, I'm not sure. Oh, well, I was going to say he's going to show it to us, but looks like Chad has something to say about that.
That is one of the most evil kill player timings, because you lose all of your dungeon progress.
Yeah, that is really evil. You're going to have to go all the way back to the entrance of make your way all the way back to the end and then make your way back to the Mimic Cave, which he was just in. So that was a big time loss.
And just like that, Ben Crichton is actually technically ahead of Koi again. What a swing. Now, of course, Ben does still have to do a couple of rooms that Koi's already finished, but I mean, he is technically going to be further in the dungeon.
Yeah, and as we see in the chat, Sinek definitely not sorry about killing Koi there. No guilt, you know, nothing at all.
You know, I mean, the important thing is at the end of the day, the crowd wins, and that's basically what we're all here for. We want to laugh at this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're not calling this crowd control for nothing, you know. It's unlike tournament races or anything else, it's not really about the runners. It's about the crowd and how mean and crazy you can get here. We're still pretty alright so far. It's kind of a, you know, it's a little bit light on the hard containers so far. It looks like both of our players are almost on equal footing, but considering they're still on green, you know, you're dying pretty fast in the dark road. Oh, and Ben Crichton here accidentally taken the wrong way on the little Samaria platform, so that's going to cost him some time.
But a good recovery to make sure to cut out a little bit of the extra loop. Kind of an awkward way to do this. Normally you don't have to go in this direction, but Ben will not opt to switch to hookshot, which you would normally do because you're going to use it in the next room anyway, and it saves time in that room. Will opt to do so, though, realizing that that's actually a lot of health you would lose taking those hits. It would be 4 hearts for the rollers.
Yeah, for sure. And as we see from Brent Crichton here, definitely making good use of the iframes from the hook, managing to essentially skip all the damage from these rollers, and as well as on the way back, finally finding his boots. So we're almost on equal footing. I want to say Koi definitely ahead a little bit, making his way back to the Mimic Cave. So here we are. I'm kind of expecting a bow in here, to be honest.
Yeah, I was really hoping, you know, before that we'd find out, but I mean, you know, the suspense was completely eliminated. So, I mean, it's a moment of truth for Koi. I mean, what else could it be? We've already seen the.
Oh man, it's a book. Well, that's that might lead to a bow. There's a tablet not too far away, and there's another tablet near Swamp Palace that we might want to check out. And it might also be our, kind of second entry into Desert Palace. With Titansmiths and a Flute, there shouldn't be really a requirement for the book, but it might help.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it that kind of kicks you in the teeth is like, you know that you can do all of Desert, so you're really only going to use it for those tablets, and neither of those are really chucks you really want to take at this point. I mean, the mountain one's not bad, but I don't think anybody wants to go past Swamp again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, whatever's open to these guys is not looking too great. And as I've said before, with Green Mail in the Dark World and the amount of hearts that we have for both of these runners, it's pretty easy to take a horrible death and then have to go all the way back again.
So the real question is, how many folks out there have been chipping away towards the pool on killing one of these players at Trinex? It's definitely not the worst one in the game, but it's up there. We'll see. I'm assuming both runners will probably take the safety door.
I would certainly hope so, especially as you've said, with the, possibility in mind that people can kill them immediately. Koi already down to 3 hearts and has to do a couple of laser skips, so it probably wouldn't hurt to do the safety exit anyways. And it looks like exactly what he's going to be doing here, taking a quick dip outside and then going right back in. So he'll be pretty safe and won't have to repeat all of Turtle Rock in case he does die or gets killed by you guys.
Yeah, and for a moment there, I really thought he was really going to actually attempt the laser skip with only 3 hearts. That would have been pretty impressive, as they do 4 hearts as well as those Chomps and Rollers do. This dungeon is quite a step up in damage output. You're kind of expected to have the blue mail by this point in terms of the original game's progression.
And we see Ben Crichton picking up his book here, and Coin not really finding anything of worth on the laser bridge, so he's just going to make his way to Trinex now. Having a little bit of trouble with the switch blocks, but nothing too big. I think I'd personally be more worried about his heart count right now than the trouble that he has getting through these switch blocks.
The sense of timing, though, I really got to appreciate that from Sinak again, actually, because it ruined his cane dash, and that's like just a really comfortable speed strat, and just to have that happen is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's definitely annoying. And oh, whoops! Looks like Koi just fell off his platform. Not sure how that happened, to be honest, but it happened.
As it turns out, they forgot to defrost the ice, the ski lift, and going up to the top of the mountain here actually fell off halfway down. That's unfortunate.
Oh man, and Koi having some real trouble here getting to the bathroom, going back and forth a couple of times on the Samaria platform. Finally makes it in. As we've said before, he is in green mail and down to 3 hearts, so he definitely doesn't have a lot of leeway here. He does have a blue potion, it looks like, but we'll see if he actually puts it to use or if he just wants to power through here.
Well, despite the ice effect having been changed, we do still have an inverted D-pad, and I believe something else. It's hard to see the text on his screen. So Koi in a very difficult fight. Part of the reason why you see the ice in the floor is it was a lot harder to react.
Oh, and I was just going to mention that he might run out of magic, but instead the ice floor makes him run into the ice head, and that kills him. Thankfully, he took the safety exit, so it's not too much of a walk back. But he is down very hard on the magic, and he's still only got 5 hearts, which in Green Mail and the Dark World isn't a whole lot.
Now I'm wondering, do we still have that green potion? Because I believe we do. I mean, he will get a magic refill, of course, on his way to the boss, but Koi potentially has some resources to use. I think it might just be being a little conservative, considering that, there's going to be a lot more, like Ganon's Tower ahead, and that might be a situation we desperately need it.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like Koi is trying to save as much as he can from his resources that he has available. He is on one-hit KO mode now. No thanks to you guys. But he still does have a blue potion, which of course in one-hit KO mode won't help him a whole lot, but it's going to be helpful later on. He just needs to be careful with his magic usage, missing a couple of fire red shots, but gets the head down, so We're only down to the last little snake part of Trinix here, while Ben Crichton is making his way to Trinix as well.
Well, all looks good for Koi. One-hit KO mode. Still gonna pull off the finish of that fight. Got kind of narrow there, but it's a pretty consistent second phase if you know what you're doing with it. Thankfully, the ice didn't interfere too much.
Yeah, it looked a lot scarier than it actually was, but he manages just fine and grabs his 5th crystal from that. Only Pod and DP and EP left, it looks like.
We actually are only 200 rupees, or not rupees, coins shy of doing another Kuko Storm on Koi's side, which with one-hit KO mode is a lethal combo.
Oh yeah, one-hit KO with Cuckoo Storm is absolutely horrific as a player, but a lot of fun to watch.
And it appears that we have escaped the one-hit KO mode. Ben Creighton, in the meantime, is that lag or is that ice physics? Yeah, that's lag.
Yeah, it looked like lag. He is having a decidedly easier time with trying. Koi checking out the first tablet here. We're still looking for the bow. Well, that's just a green rupee, not really helpful.
Well, that will take him directly into Spike Cave, which is another interesting place where you can absolutely make that annoying for the runner. It's kind of hard to get back there unless you're gonna, really devote to going, hard at it, because it's pretty easy for people to interfere with you in this cave. Koi's gonna opt to use hookshot strats and go all the way down to lowest possible health before using that blue potion.
Oh, and we're in one-hit KO mode for Koi, so I'm not sure if his blue potion or anything is going to save him here. I think he's just getting ready to deal with the death that he's.
With literally no chill.
Yeah,
Sinek,
just
making sure that he's
just gonna hang out in the item menu. Maybe he's hoping the one-hit KO mode will run out if he keeps his menu up, but he's not really sure what to do because he knows that as soon as he closes that menu, he'll be.
And I'm pretty sure the timer's not going to elapse during the menu. Anybody out there remember?
I'm honestly not sure. I think that, at least from what it looks like, that's what he's hoping for, but I don't think that's really going to save him.
Oh, actually, I do see it filling up. Okay, so maybe the timer will expire. But the thing is, though, is does it not take effect at all when you unpause, or does it wait until the screen transition?
That's a really good question. I unfortunately don't know, but we'll probably find out very soon here on Koi's side. He's just going to be switching back and forth in his menu, annoying us back a little bit. That seems to be his payback for Chad being mean to him.
In lieu of a mic, you only have a few instruments to work with.
Yeah, and if it's not rage slashes, it's got to be menuing back and forth between a couple of items.
The question, Chad, is are you going to stand for this? That was a whole minute, actually probably 2 minutes at this point, that he has dodged this one-hit KO mode, which, interestingly enough, is probably going to put him very far behind Ben.
Yeah, he manages to wait out the one-hit KO mode, barely makes it, maybe? Oh, damn, that was so... Oh, man, that makes me feel awful. He waited all this time just to die at the end anyways.
That is unfortunate.
Chad seems to be very happy. I can't blame them. They pay for the one-hit KO mode and he just waited it out, so this seems like karma caught up to him, but still, I feel bad. Oh man, and immediately a Cuckoo Storm right away after that.
That is the good thing, though, is will not actually be too badly impacted by the Kuko Storm without the one-hit KO, so perhaps somebody was looking to combine the two, which would have been very annoying to deal with.
Alright, King's Tomb not really having anything of worth, and Ben Creighton showing us that the Graveyard Ledge really not amazing either, so we're still looking for that bow. That bow seems to be eluding us with all the cuckoos and God knows what else flying at us.
You know, perhaps Ganon understands that the bow is the only way that we could possibly take down these birds, and that's why it's so hard to find. Actually, at this point, I'm starting to wonder if it's in, like, Eastern or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not that many places left to check. I mean, these guys have been around the world quite a bit, and where could it be, possibly? Koi activating his flute for, I think, the third time now.
I could have sworn it was the first. And actually is rewarded and greeted instantly by a Kuko, which is an interesting way to... I don't know, he's like wearing it like a hat.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny seeing that duck fly away and like Cuckoo just sitting on his...
Bringing new meaning to the term bird brain.
Alright, Ben Crichton picking up all the arrows from the miner shed, which we saw much earlier from Koi. He seems to be going to Desert Palace right now. It is the green pendant, so theoretically not needed, but you know, you don't want to ignore that stuff because you never know where your progression will be.
Well, we have already seen these caves, and Ben will absolutely take the time to pick up this bottle. That can be a gift and a bane, because you can put things in those bottles. So if you wanted to, say, like, put bees in those bottles instead of letting somebody else put a fairy in them, you could absolutely deprive the runner of an opportunity to fill that bottle with something favorable, or at least force them to empty it in order to make use of them.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think it's kind of surprising we see Ben Grenton checking Agina's cave right now. I mean, we're 1 hour, 20 minutes into the seed, and Agina is theoretically available right from the start. So we'll have to see if anything's in here, but it's only a blue ruby. So, you know, not a whole lot missed out on.
Yeah, but definitely going to be thorough and make sure to check it anyway. This does give Koi an opportunity to leapfrog once again back into the progressive lead, getting a lot more of Desert Palace done. However, we haven't seen anything important in here yet, so it may just be that we don't even need to be in here at all.
Yeah, it looks like Ben Creighton has a different idea of where he wants to go. He's probably going to check out the shovel spot. I would assume that seems to be where he's going right now. Just clearing up some more overworld location. I'm curious to see where he goes after this, because these guys, you know, despite being kind of pestered and bulleted by you guys, are still trying to finish this in a reasonable amount of time.
And Koi diving towards the back end of the Desert Palace will have a pretty fast Lammolas kill in his hands, having both Fire Rod and Tempered Sword. Ben Creighton, on the other hand, going to take advantage of the most possible item checks here in Palace of Darkness. However, without the bow, not able to finish.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see where this takes him. I think this is the first time we're actually seeing Palace of Darkness here. And definitely these guys have enough money to pay Kiki, the extortionist monkey. So we will have to see. Diving into pot without a bow has paid off in the past in many a rando seed. So this might be a really good choice here from Ben Creighton.
We're seeing a couple of different things stacked here for Koi. We're seeing an inverted buttons from Synax, so that's the face buttons, not the D-pad, which would be a very easy way to mess up this fight.
Alright, Koi making short work, as you were saying, of the Lammolas fight here, while Ben Creighton is checking into Eastern. We only get a heart piece and a green pendant from DP. We'll have to see if that green pendant pays out for whatever we're looking for. I mean, at this point, it's really only the bow as far as I can tell.
And didn't take long for Ben to jump into Eastern Palace as well. So really trying to take advantage of as many locations as he can get to quickly.
We see a short little map screen here on Ben Crichton's screen. It's not that he messes up his buttons, it's just that Tynek has managed to invert his buttons once again, so he's a little bit confused on what the right button actually is.
I find that the most rewarding places to use an inversion are probably like the combat heavy sections of the game, particularly the Gauntlet in GT or in Aghanim's Tower. Both of those gauntlets are actually really excellent places to see the people floundering around, and very easy places to kill them too.
Yeah, that is definitely the meanest places that you can choose to make that. We're seeing Koi check out the second tablet here, so we'll have to see if that book actually leads to anything. And it's just another blue rupee, so the bow has to be somewhere else.
And blue roofs for Ben's today, apparently.
Yeah, all the Bens getting all the blue rupees.
You know, I think that hint that Ben Creighton just saw about the glove being behind Mushroom would have actually been pretty useful if somebody did an early EP route.
Yeah, but it definitely looks like both of our runners here aren't huge fans of going to EP without the Ben Creighton apparently begrudgingly making his way through here, while Koi is apparently making his way to Pod.
Yeah, seemingly nobody really wants to dive into Misery Mire, and I certainly don't blame them. There's only 2 item locations in there. However, as you mentioned, this is a bit of a long shot for Ben Creighton, going to try to get a bow in the last possible location on the way to where you need it.
Yeah, I mean, unless he finds the bow in here, he's gonna have to dip out and, make a different choice on where he wants to go, and it's only a piece of heart, so mirroring out and off. And speaking of the bow, Koi just picking it up for his green pendant, so I feel like Koi is at a pretty big advantage here, unless Ben Crichton decides to do Desert Palace right away.
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be one thing if it was just the dungeon preventing them, but of course, as you mentioned, you got to do, you got to go turn that in as well. So, and considering the number of locations that are currently locked by bow, or at least things that we want to do that are out of the way with bow, yeah, this is a huge advantage for Koi.
Yeah, Ben Crichton, unfortunately, I want to almost say finding a small key here in the first chest of pot, so it's not immediately bow locked, so that will definitely not deter him from going in, which essentially just leads him away from the bow a lot more than it needs to.
Well, despite that swing, both of our runners clearing a lot of distance and a lot of checks very quickly. Now, there's still plenty of opportunity for a swing here. One thing that Ben does have working in his favor is he does have silver arrows, whereas Koi does not. Ben would have been right in that scenario too. So maybe a time save.
Yeah, that is very true. We've got one band with silver arrows already provided by Champ, as far as I'm aware, and another band with no silver arrows but the actual bow to shoot some arrows. So we'll have to see what is more helpful here. I'm kind of, I don't know how soon we're gonna see Ben Crichton dipping into Desert Palace to pick up that green pendant.
Yeah, it's certainly not an optimal place to be going to, from his perspective. And Misery Mire is still on the table, so that's a tempting place to go. Although it wouldn't be unlikely to see him do both, which would be the worst case scenario, really.
Yeah, absolutely. If he decides to dip Misery Mire first, he's going to be very disappointed, and that means he's going to have to go back to Desert Palace. If everything goes super wrong, he might even dip into Ice Palace, though right now I don't think he really has a reason to.
I mean, it is technically more items, isn't it?
I mean, technically, yeah, it just will be a very unfortunate decision.
Yeah, I don't wish full clear Ice Palace on anyone.
No, definitely not. We're seeing Koi almost being up on Armo's fight here, while Ben Crichton is making the rest of the way through Pod as far as he can go, without the bow at least.
And Koi will demonstrate our first boss usage of bow in the entire race, an hour and a half in. The Armos Knights. Seriously, like, I mean, an NMG run, you'd be almost done by now if you're really fast at the game, but we're gonna finally get a boss kill with bow.
Yeah, and a very nice quick kill as well. Grabs another crystal, so really all that's left for him is pod as far as I can see, and then he's ready to go into Ganon's tower, which doesn't mean he's gonna win because, you know, from experience, especially in Ganon's tower, the good old crowd control comes back into the picture, and people can be really, really mean.
And since it's been a little while since we talked about it, if you are tuning into the race a little bit later on than we explained it earlier, it's pretty easy to use crowd control as an interface. It's a extension of the Twitch player. You just click on that gear icon that you see on the screen to activate it, and then it'll have a special menu you can use. You can exchange bits into coins or use free redeemable coins that you get for watching the stream or being subscribed to speed gaming, and use those to influence the game that you see in front of you. So you'll see effects show up in the bottom right corner or bottom left corner of their screens, and of course you'll see them happen as they unfold. And as a separate reminder, if you want to make sure you're sniping them on the timing of this stuff, you're probably going to have your best results if you also have their individual streams open. And it's a good reminder to follow these runners as well.
Yeah, for sure. Feel free to follow both of these runners, and thanks a lot for, you know, to them to put themselves up your ridicule and your meanness, I want to call it. As Udai said, if you want to snipe them in a timely fashion, you might want to open up their individual streams, or just, you know, account for a little bit of stream delay, maybe 10 to 20 or maybe 30 seconds. Make sure to get your stuff in earlier than you think it might be needed, and then you'll be sure to actually snipe them when you want them to.
Well, we were hoping that this wouldn't happen, but Ben Creighton diving into Ice Palace, a perfectly viable decision to make, not the one that's going to pay off for him. I'm wondering if there's really anything that's going to be of value in here. Potentially maybe a Cane of Burner or a Cape. In crowd control, those can be useful.
Yeah, unfortunately, as we know as commentators and viewers, a not so great decision as far as items are concerned, but as you've said, there might be some invulnerability items. I don't think he's going to really find a whole lot of anything.
Well, it would appear that some heart containers have been traded and taken away, actually, from Koi. You can just see his health plummeting. 4 hearts in rapid succession taken away from 5. It looks like Koi's going to be in tough shape.
Pretty rough, but still at 8 hearts. I mean, with the green mail in the Dark World, 8 hearts sounds like a lot, but as I said, with the green mail, not that whole lot of health that you have. Everything does at least 2 hearts of damage in the Dark World, so you're not as safe as you might think.
Well, I'm not sure if I should be concerned by the report in chat about from the Synac about how many hearts are showing. I'm not sure if that's a threat he's making about the hearts being taken away, or if it's a bug report, but both are kind of intimidating to me, even as a commentator.
Yeah, let's see. He's mirrored back, and he's not quite leaving the dungeon yet. People are saying we need to wait for a save and quit or a death until the new heart count shows up, so we'll actually have to see what's happening.
Oh, okay, and I'm pretty sure the actual effective health is correct. It's just not going to show up correctly on our UI. That makes sense.
All right, Koi is making his way back to Pod, picking up or getting ready to pick up what is essentially his last crystal.
Yeah, another change that's coming with the next version update is we're going to be having a difference between how many crystals you need to get into Ganon's tower and what you need in order to defeat Ganon. I'm wondering what the implications of crowd control will be for that. But I think it's kind of best if we have the longest possible games. You know, crowd control really. There's so many swings. We've seen the lead has been traded in this race at least 6 times between the two runners, and both of them are playing pretty well.
Yeah, I certainly agree. For crowd control races, you probably want the longer seats just to mitigate any unfair advantages someone might gain from just having a lot of fans or people feeling very wholesome and lovely and supporting one person a whole lot more than the other person. So the longer the game goes, the more, equalizing it is for the effects that are happening.
You know, by and by, I've been pretty impressed by the showing for both of these runners. As you mentioned, sometimes it is a little lopsided, but both of them have had a lot of effects going and a lot of hearts taken and given, and bottle contents. The flutes have been deactivated all around. I'm very appreciative of what we're seeing from the chat here today. You guys are.
Yeah, thanks a whole lot to the chat and all the support that we're getting, and of course all the effects that you guys are putting on these poor guys playing right now. But also huge props to both Ben Crichton and Koi for sticking through with this and, actually putting on a really, really good show. Both of these guys have been in green mail the whole time and not a whole lot of hearts. Speaking of not a whole lot of hearts, Koi is down to 3 hearts. Jesus.
And it really shows that was going to result in the death. We fell a long way from where we were. Actually having to remember to drop bees in the meantime. The bees' knees were the 12 hearts that Koi had before, now down to 3. Quite a difficult tumble to take. Well, the good news is that having done most of the dungeon, it is pretty quick to get back there. Unfortunately, a handful of extra menus you got to deal with. But fortunately enough, having not taken any damage, Koi will be able to save a couple menus, being able to just sword beam in this room and the next, which is nice. To those of you joining a little bit later, Koi definitely does have the advantage having found the bow. Ben is doing checks that we don't need to do in order to find the bow. We know that it was off of the green pendant, which is desert.
Yeah, unfortunately for Ben Crichton, he really needs to get to Desert Palace and grab the green pendant. But of course, it's definitely not a bad decision to go to Ice Palace. And while you're in here, you might as well finish it up. So him being on the way to Cold Stare, definitely not unexpected and also not wrong. He's just not going to be rewarded for it. We're seeing Koi making his way here to Helmasaur, so once he kills Helmasaur, he's going to be having his last crystal that he needs to get into GT and finish up the seed. Of course, this all, again, depends on what you guys decide to do to these poor people. So, despite Koi being way ahead currently, that could very easily change if you guys put some of your coins towards that.
Wow, good fights all around. Ben Crichton also pulling off his Cold Stare fight despite low health, and I gotta admire the RNG that Koi experienced in that entire sequence on that second refight. Was down a heart from the turtle room, was rewarded with a heart drop from one of the turtles on the walk path to the boss, and then got perfect boss RNG, getting all 17 hammer smacks in with no fireballs. Wow.
Yeah, definitely very well done, and also very lucky as decides to save and quit and start back up at the old man, which of course after getting all your crystals is probably the quickest way to get back up there to GT. But once again, we can't ignore the fact that he's in green mail and on 3 hearts as you start out your rando run usually, so he's definitely not very secure on what's gonna happen.
I'm guessing secretly this turned into one of those low percent skip all hearts runs.
It sure looks like it.
Of all the things we've discovered with Ancillama slotting, that's the weirdest.
I certainly agree. We're seeing Ben Crichton here. It looks like he is checking out what we have on the pedestal just to make sure. Still looking for that bow. unfortunately hasn't quite made his way to the Desert Palace.
Well, he's certainly not going to be very happy about triple bombs, and it appears that somebody at some point deactivated his flute, as he will have to, once again for the first time in this race, activate his flute.
Yeah, have definitely not seen this before or heard it before. We'll see what Ben decides to do while Koi releases a bee and opens up Ganon's tower.
It's a very precarious situation, as during this cutscene it is very easy to soft lock, particularly if you take a death. Wow, Koi emerges.
And a second bee. This guy is a brave man. Alright, we're starting out on the right side. As we usually do, if we find a key, which we do in the very first chest, we might go full right side, or at the very least check out the first couple of chests here on the right side, which looks like Koi is doing here. Probably gonna skip out on the tile room for now. Can never discount the tile room completely.
Yeah, as far as Ganon's tower strategy goes in a crowd control race, not too much is very different. You're just going to expect to be messed with a lot, particularly in the gauntlet part of it. But there are a lot of punishing places to take a death. If we haven't found a big key by, say, Ice Armos, it might be very annoying to get killed at that point, particularly after you finish the Ice Armos fight, depending on your equipment loadout. I think with the bow, it's probably not as big of a deal, but if you were to deny somebody after they've used their arrows, that could probably be a little more annoying.
That is definitely true. We finally see Ben Crichton making his way into Desert Palace, so he's definitely on the right way, though Koi, as I was saying earlier, and as we've been pointing out the whole seed, these guys are on green mail, and Koi being on 3 hearts in Ganon's tower, that could lead to a very easy death very quickly.
Interestingly enough, those 20 rupees in the torch signify that we would have had a sword on the torch, which, given the current layout of keys that we've seen, would have been visible to everybody in a normal race.
Yep, certainly, and I mean, this has been replaced with 20 rupees just because the chat has been generous as they are, and speaking of, we just found the big key here for Koi, so he is definitely up on his way into the gauntlet. Let's see how well he does.
We are seeing some progress in chat towards removing his bomb stack. There is a required bomb usage at the very top of the dungeon, as well as a potential to use one for the restock room. So you could prevent him from being able to do that. Koi down to 4 bombs, 3 bombs, very quickly falling. Synac, man, you've been just absolutely vicious.
Yeah, these bombs are going away, still at 30 arrows, but as we, I think you mentioned earlier, he is at 30 arrows, but he still does not have the silver, so even having a full, well, I mean, he's now at 0 arrows, so shortly before the Mimic Room having 0 arrows, I don't think it could be much worse than that.
Koi's also in a very weird position, having some difficulty using his bow to take out this Mimic. Seeing as he only has 3 hearts, he can't really afford to walk on those spikes.
Yeah,
oh, and he's out of arrows!
Now he either has to wait for someone in chat to be nice enough to gift him some arrows, or he's gonna have to pull out the newly allowed Mimic clip here, which I'm not sure he is able to do.
Mimic Clip is a series of frame-perfect movements where you can mess with the behavior of mimics to get them to clip outside of the room. Koi seemed to be attempting it, although honestly I'm not entirely certain on the setup myself.
I honestly couldn't tell you, but he seems to not want to leave at least, which is very understandable. So he's probably just hoping for someone in chat to be nice enough to gift him some arrows so he can get rid of these couple of mimics here.
So if you are considering giving him arrows, the way you do it is you activate the crowd control extension through the Twitch player. There is a gear-shaped icon on the video feed itself. Once you do that, you'll have a menu that you can use to use coins, which you can either exchange bits for or use some of the free ones that come with your viewer session. and you can either chip in towards more arrows or directly, exchange them for arrows. Currently, somebody has given at least 7 or 8 arrows, so Koi does have enough to do this room. Will not have enough to do the next room unless he picks up more, and he may have positioned the mimics in a bad position.
No, it looks pretty good. He got 9 arrows and it went down to 7, and it's continuously going down, but there's an arrow pickup here. If you can kill this mimic quickly enough, he might be able, but it's not. Yeah, there we go. Whew, barely makes it.
It's so tough because he only has 3 hearts to work with.
Yeah, that makes it even harder. But not to forget Ben Crichton. He finally picked up his bow from Sahasrara, so he's gonna be going back to Eastern Palace and Pod to finish up his last 2 crystal dungeons.
And as we had talked about earlier, we have pretty much done everything in these dungeons, so it is the goest of modes for Ben. Potentially too little too late, who knows? Koi's already encountered a couple of very slow delays, particularly those arrows, on the way towards advancing, and unfortunately doesn't have a net and wants to show it satisfaction back.
Koi really trying to catch that fairy, but no such luck. Down to 3 hearts, has 3 empty bottles, no bug net to catch that fairy. That's annoying.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Koi's sense of humor so far.
Yeah, he's definitely not holding back on showing us in chat how unsatisfied he's with some of these things happening.
Amazingly, he is back up to 29 arrows.
He sure is, but he's also down to 1 single heart, and we're nearing the Lanmo 2 fight. He would really like to powder that bunny beam in the next room, but no powder either, so no bug net, no powder, no securities, and no safeties.
Now he does have the advantage of being able to get at least 1 heart getting 1 heart from the room after Lamolus 2. Unfortunately, with no fire shield, it's actually kind of dangerous to walk into that room, and I think Koi is kind of considering that.
Yeah, I think he's waiting here and hoping for someone to at least give him a little bit of a refill, if not a heart container or 2, to, make the whole rest of this climb a little safer.
And as a consequence of waiting, gets all 3 worms at once.
Yeah, not too bad if you want to spin kill them, but he is down to, oh man, and just as I'm talking about it, he takes a death here, down to half a heart, and then takes a hit from the land.
This is kind of a difficult scenario, because, I mean, Koi wants to get some help from the chat, but if you wait too long, oh no, getting inverted D-pad hand buttons. I'm walking back down the stairs, but if you wait too long, you're going to give your opponent the opportunity to catch back up to you.
Yeah, not only are you giving your opponent the opportunity to catch back up, you're also giving the chat, more opportunities to troll you. As we've just seen, an inverted D-pad or anything along those lines can really mess you up quickly, and we're taking another death.
Well, does thankfully have quite a few arrows to work with this time around.
Yeah, so at least the Mimic Room shouldn't be much of a problem anymore if he can make.
I might be laughing a little bit when he stops after he gets hit, because it's so frustrating to lose 33% of your health.
Yeah, and I mean, usually you don't even think about little things like an anti-fairy hitting you. As you see, even an anti-fairy is really dangerous right now. It costs you a whole heart, which, as you've said, is like 33% of all of your health.
Definitely have to admire Koi's perseverance here, taking advantage of really good strats to get through the Mimic Rooms. Actually turning away from a hard drop. I was kind of surprised by that, but I guess the BMOs in that room make it almost kind of a bad gambit to go after it.
Yeah, it might turn out to be more hurtful than it actually helps, but as you said, I was equally surprised. I figured, that heart could have been worth it.
Interestingly enough, it looks like Ben Creighton has actually been gifted a bug net, which we definitely know Koi doesn't have, thanks to some menu spamming previously.
Yeah, not to forget that Ben Creighton is also extremely ahead on hard cap. No thanks to you guys in chat, but he is currently on 3, 6, 8 hearts, while Koi is making his way up Ganon's tower with only 3, which seems just insane to me. How are you even gonna survive all that on 3 hearts and green?
Which, going back to the previous point, I'm honestly amazed anybody's ever done a no extra heart, low percent run. I mean, the people have done it. I don't know how.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be able to do it. But speaking of, Koi just got gifted 1 single heart container, which is a start. You know, 4 is definitely better than 3.
Well, Koi in a much more commanding position, having twice as much health as he did last time walking into this Lamolus fight.
Yeah, does a good job getting the first swarm down, dodging these fireballs, probably the most annoying part of it. And a nice kill here.
Yeah, it really shows you the difference for when you do and don't have health or hearts to work with. Koi's confidence in that fight was much more present. You could definitely tell immediately.
It also looks like someone gifted Koi a fairy in a bottle. As far as I'm aware, he had 3 empty bottles before, and now I just saw a fairy in a bottle in one of them. He's not super in a terrible position anymore. It's still not great, and he still doesn't have a bug net, but it's better than it was before.
Well, Koi has put in a lot of effort to get to the top of this tower. In the meantime, Ben Creighton finishing up Eastern Palace, which is the last remaining crystal for him. He has completed 1 extra dungeon over Koi at this point. But if we were to see Koi die near the top of this dungeon, or even, heaven forbid, during the Aghanim 2 cutscene, that would give Ben a great opportunity to at least get within striking distance. Still would have to find that big key, which would require him to go left first.
Yeah, we'll have to see how cruel or, benevolent the people will be to Koi. He is closing in on the Moldorm 2 fight, which is almost the last little bit of the Ganon's tower. But we'll have to see if people have anything to say about it. Alright, grabbing a heart container that puts him up to 5 hearts, but at the same time, dear old Chet putting him on 1-hit KO mode just before Aga 2. Ah, Jesus Christ, you guys really have no mercy.
And, a part of me thinks it's almost for the Helmasaur room, too, because, I mean, one small mistake in there, and you're definitely taking damage, but Koi managed to get through it. The one thing that stinks about the Aga 2 fight is that the main primary Aghanim can definitely do a blue ball attack, and that can still 1-hit KO trigger and kill.
Very nice double there, and almost another one, but I'm actually quite surprised he didn't just wait out the 1-hit KO mode before the Aga 2 fight, and here we see how troublesome. He thankfully still has the gifted fairy, but the 1-hit KO mode doesn't go away, so...
Well, that is 1. Will it be enough? Ooh, and the Aghanim warp.
Oh, very nice. There we go. 1-hit KO mode is turned off, and he kills Aga 2, but he's still horribly down and gets another fairy. Oh, I didn't even realize.
There have been some sneaky fairies going on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, and then a pooled death. And he did not have a 3rd fairy.
Nope, that's not going to be a fairy. Does that still count as a killed Aga 2? Nope, apparently not. Well, here goes another Ganon's tower climb, guys. If you haven't seen enough of the gauntlet yet, here we go.
Well, it's not quite turned to tables, but the record shows that Ben Creighton is just a Ganon's Tower big key behind from Koi here.
Yeah, not too far behind. Koi getting his hearts refilled from Chad as a courtesy, or maybe just to make him feel safe before they kill him again. We don't quite know.
Well, we get a right side check from Ben here, so that will be a delay in him getting that big key, as we saw before was on the left side in the Stalfos room. That being said, though, 5 hearts. I mean, Koi was able to get up there the first time, or the third time. Was eventually able to get up there. So, I mean, this could still be a pretty big challenge.
Yeah, though, you know, the 5 hearts are better than the 3 he originally had, so it's not all that awful anymore. But still, having killed Aga 2 already and just waiting for that bat to fly away and then dying like 3 times with 2 fairies and having to redo all of this, can't feel good.
Well, this is the beauty of crowd control. You know, you get to have an opportunity to watch things go from, oh my goodness, I'm sure this race is in the bag, to, well, really not that far apart now. And still plenty of opportunity for either runner to take the lead, give the lead, and do so several times before this finishes. Although Ben has a couple of things working in his favor, those silver arrows and more hearts maximum is definitely going to be an advantage.
Yeah, for sure. We're seeing another Landmo 2 fight from Koi here. Not too bad. Only takes 1 heart of damage so far. Is going to be killing that second or that last Landmo soonish. There we go.
And with that, Ben Creighton will pick up his big key, and we'll start heading up. The tower does have a couple of keys to work with. And plenty of arrows. Unfortunately, only... Oh, he gets a full health refill from the Synac. Although, receiving the fairy did not end up getting one in the bottle. I have not seen his bottle contents recently.
Well, Koi definitely has 1 fairy in a bottle, but he's currently a little bit worried about his magic meter. I think he was kind of hesitant to use Chicana Samaria. He still has to light all these torches. Should be fine if he uses the lamp, but...
Oh God, Koi, I've been sick a dog all day, but I still wanted to celebrate over a year of fellowship and a year of sub.
Was that a German...
And I think that was French, and I'm not sure where that came from, but that sounded like text-to-speech. And
yeah, that was the word I was looking for.
I'm very confused right now, but sure.
That's amazing, and thank you for recognizing the language that I didn't, because honestly, there's lots of differences between French and German. I'm just kind of agnostic to the both.
I do believe that was French. I'm not 100% sure myself.
She's so shocked. I'm like, was that your mic, or is that must have been Koi stream then?
Yeah, I was just sitting here as well, just kind of mouth agape, wondering what the heck's happening.
Well, Koi remaining more composed than definitely myself, and you're definitely handling it better than I did, but we'll finish up his Moldorm 2 fight for the first time, I swear. Totally didn't need to do it with that chest being there, but...
Yeah, definitely a good Moldorm 2 fight. We're down to 5 hearts, or 4.5 currently for Koi again. While Ben Creighton is making his way through the first couple of rooms of the gauntlet. We'll have to see where all this ends up. We're, you know, surprisingly close for how different everything's going to be. Koi opting to use either medallion here to get rid of all these annoying mini Helmosaurs.
You know, with half a heart of health remaining, that was actually a really smart use of a medallion. You don't see a lot of medallion usage really late in Ganon's Tower. You often see it in the gauntlet. But that was really great game now.
Right, Koi has 2 fairies in a bottle, so he's currently not too worried about his half heart. you know, health meter. He can take 2 deaths without worrying too much, but as the past has shown us, oh, well, there's a little map, just making sure we're in the right room here.
You gotta love those inversions.
And the first death. Alright, that's one fairy. We've got one more fairy in the bottle, unless you guys want to gift him another one. Yikes. Another death.
Whoa.
So there goes the second fairy. That's all the fairies we've got. If he dies again, he's gonna have to do the Ganon's Tower climb for the 3rd time.
He has been gifted a few heart containers, so that's going to help him out a little bit, but this is still very scary.
Yeah, and insanely mean, I have to say. I mean, come on, let this guy just, you know, he's been here a couple of times. Oh, boy. Alright, there's another fairy going on. Oh, and another map check. Still in the right room. We've killed Aga 2, but is it really gonna be a killed Aga 2, or are we experiencing another death that will reset everything?
You know, it's interesting too, because we're pretty close to within the margin of where the silvers and regular arrows are going to be different, and Koi does manage to get outside of the cutscene, so we'll actually be able to make it to the Ganon fight.
Alright, we actually made it to the big bad, poking a big old hole in the top of the pyramid, and Koi landing right there and dropping right in. So we'll have to see if we can make it through the Ganon fight.
Well, it appears Koi has been given another fairy and has been killed again by crowdfunding. The chat really showing up.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of a fight going on here, given fairies, given... it looks like people are trying to support Koi and sabotage Koi at the same time.
And if nothing else, this is still delaying him. Ben Creighton, already in the Aghanim 2 fight, has an opportunity because of... Well, actually, no, it's not the same RNG. There's like 3 Aghanim fights on Koi's side.
Alright, Koi getting in as many hits as he can. He's down to 3 hearts, so he really needs to be kind of careful. As we've mentioned many times before, both of these guys are still on green mail. And there's the fire bat hit. Definitely 3 hearts or more. Gets revived by a fairy, but I think that might be the last fairy he has in his reservoir.
Something else to consider as well with green mail, Ganon hugs do 8 hearts of damage, and fire bats do I think 4 or maybe 3. So he's not likely to. Yeah, he does 4. So really hard to survive this fight if you're even a little bit scared of what your situation is. If you're not doing a 1+1 Ganon, because of minor delays, it becomes much more difficult.
Oh, yikes. And even if you don't run into Ganon, apparently Chak can still kill you. The fairy was still there, so we're getting some heart. Only a matter of time here. Meanwhile, Ben Creighton
so down.
Also dropping into the Ganon fight. As you were saying, it's really close with these guys.
We have both fighters in phase 2 right now.
Yeah,
Koi just barely had in phase.
Koi making it to phase 3, but he is again down to 3 hearts, so any hit or anything else that chat wants to do to him will... I think I still saw a fairy in a bottle there, but that might be the last one.
Yeah, and that would still put him very far behind Ben at this point, if because Ben does still have silvers and Koi does not. Gifting silvers to Koi would actually allow a very last-second turnaround here.
Oh, we see Ben filling up his hearts before actually taking a death or anything, so that might come back to bite him. We're in almost the 4th phase here. There we go. Getting some of these silverless spins in. Also got the torch glitch, which helps immensely for silverless Ganon. We'll have to see if his little advantage is enough to actually make up for the time saved from just hitting Ganon with a bunch of silver arrows.
Well, Koi's doing excellent job of getting triples in. Not every single one available, but Ben actually missed his torch glitch trying to do a faster setup for silvers. Koi might actually be able to pull this off. It's close.
This is going to be crazy close.
He is just a couple spins away.
Ooh, and he's got it. Alright, so as long as nobody does anything super mean right now, Koi seems to have this in the bag by only a couple of seconds. As we can see right now, both of these guys holding up their swords at the same time, but Koi enters the Triforce room just a couple of seconds beforehand. That's like 5 seconds of difference. Jesus Christ.
Throw your GGs in chat, folks. What an incredible finish.
Absolutely. Big GGs to both of these guys. Considering how crazy everything was, that was an amazingly close race. And before I can even finish my sentence, we've already got Koi in here, the winner of the race. GG to you, Koi. It was like a 5-second difference.
Chat doesn't like me, apparently.
It's kind of hard to read into that, and I'm not sure if that's entirely something. I mean, you gotta watch this back.
Cynic. It's Cynic. It's all Cynic.
Yeah, I can 100% confirm that is definitely. He is at fault for everything.
He seems to be amused in chat, for what it's worth.
So you said I won?
Yes,
you won
by
5 seconds.
cool.
about 5
5
seconds.
seconds. How close was it before the GT fiasco?
Not as close as you might think.
Because I climbed GT like 7 times, I'm pretty sure.
Let's say Ben Crichton needed 2 more crystals while you were climbing GT.
Oh, wow.
Well, that being said, though, for most of the race, it was really close. It only ended up being that way, and I was kind of hoping to get Ben in here and talk about both of you guys at the same time. It was really about the bow. Your decision to go to Desert Palace when you did ended up being the thing that, put you ahead in that respect. Unfortunately for the Ganon's Tower scenario, most of that lead got eaten up.
Right.
Yeah, that was certainly the biggest difference, that you went to Desert Palace and turned in your green pendant a lot earlier than Ben Crichton did. But as Yudai just said, thanks to chat and apparently mostly Cynic, you kinda didn't have too much of a head start for the
I
lead
lost
there.
my lead.
We were also joined by Ben Crichton as well. GG, congratulations on this incredible race. This is nuts.
GG.
So how are you feeling about the ending there? I mean, 2 of you finished just 5 seconds apart from each other. That's insane.
I definitely got the distinct impression when chat wasn't messing with me a whole lot that I must be way behind. So I'm surprised it was as close as it was.
Yeah, they were picking on me pretty hard. I must have gone through like 8 bottled fairies in GT.
Yeah, it was quite insane. I wouldn't say you were super behind, though calling you Ben is kind of mean, because both of you guys are apparently named Ben, so nobody knows who I'm talking to. But
No one calls me Ben.
so for Ben Crichton, the big difference maker, as Yudai mentioned earlier, is that Koi went to Desert Palace and turned in his green pendant for the bow a lot earlier than you did. But to equalize everything, it seems that chat, was definitely on your side, Ben Crichton, because they killed Koi a lot. Especially what sticks out to me in my mind was killing Koi after he had killed Aga 2 already, making him redo all the GT climb and killing Aga 2 and Moldorm 2 again.
Oh no.
Dude, they had to kill me twice to actually make that happen, though, because I had a fairy.
It was there was a lot of fairies and a lot more deaths for Koi up there in GT.
I'll definitely say that There was a lot of more creative deaths earlier on, though. I really appreciate chat for throwing out all those Kuko Storms. Both of you guys had Kuko Storms at the same time, at least once or twice.
Dem Kukos, man.
Yeah, and I really got to shout out the Kuko Storms as well, because I love the different sprites that you get. While one of you guys was haunted by like fire shields with weird appendages, the other guy was haunted by flying thieves' heads and stuff like that. It was just crazy.
Yeah, so the green pendant turn in, I finished Turtle Rock, right? And like, okay, I need a bow, and I'm done. And I have all 3 pendants to go into. Well, Desert's the fastest, but it also followed the most recent progression, which was the boots in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it wasn't boots locked, I might not have killed Lambo and just gone into Mire. But it was boots locked, or at least logically boots locked. So, I get the green pendant, and then, but I also got the book around the same time as the boots, so I went ahead and turned in the Bombos tablet on my way to just dip into pod.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the routing just kind of lined up for doing those things.
It was definitely interesting, because for Ben Creighton here, it turned out he decided to go to Ice Palace, which was definitely not a bad choice. It theoretically has more items.
I definitely thought about that.
Yeah, it's as worth as any of the other pendant dungeons, maybe, except for the part where you're like, well, this is the green pendant, so that might lead to something. Who knows? But
I was gonna do ice right after Skull Woods, but then I got the ice rod.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely not a bad choice, but it just turned out to be the wrong choice in that, in that situation.
Honestly, the tiebreaker, I started getting up in my own head too much because I was feeling so behind that the things the chat did to me, I was trying to read some kind of message or sense in it. And somebody gave me a green potion, like, okay, what's the message there? What are they trying to tell me? Someplace where I need magic. Ice Palace. That's where the progression is. I'll go.
Clearly.
That's amazing.
Clearly.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, definitely not a bad way to think about it. On the other hand, you never know if chat is just trying to troll you.
Well, so I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Neither of you ever actually stepped into Misery Mire. I'll start with you, Ben. I mean, is there any particular reason that you never decided to go in there, or is it just because of the way the logic played out?
Well, in my case, I mean, Mire and Desert were right there. They're both 2 items. Desert's typically faster, plus it had the 3rd with green pendant, so went Desert first, and then no need to go Mire.
And I'm guessing, Koi, that it's kind of a similar scenario where because Desert was sort of like your last, part of the chain for the items, you never had a reason to go in there.
I typically don't favor Mire late in the game. Like if I go independent Mire, it's gonna be something I do really early because I'm missing like a hammer or something. But when I first had access to Mire, I also had access to Thieves Town and Swamp, and it just didn't feel like the right play for that time.
Yeah, I think that's
like I
pretty
said
fair.
before, with Lambo being boots locked, and then the routing just lining up for turning it in on my way to dipping pod for the very first time. Like at that point, I was pretty sure it was gonna be like a vanilla bow or something.
Well, I think it was an absolutely amazing race. You both stuck through it without, seemingly being frustrated too much. I know that Koi had a little bit of trouble in the first GT climb, getting all his arrows removed. So that was a little
clipped Mimics 1, though. I did clip Mimics 1.
You sure
Eventually.
did.
It took me a while, but I did it. It's not a glitch I'm very comfortable with.
I also want to give a big shout out again to Senek, who made it a lot more interesting and hard for you both to finish up. You can direct all your complaints towards him. He is not only a tournament admin, he is, as far as I'm aware, also a mod on the Link to the Past Randomizer Discord. So any complaints can be directed directly at him, and I won't blame you whatsoever.
I will be outputting the crowd control log to a text file so I can take note of who did what. So you know who you are. You're on my list.
We've got some strategery going on over here. Speaking of which, I wanted to. This is something I kind of wanted to ask the last time I did a crowd control comm. If you guys learned something in this race, what's one thing you're going to take forward with you into the next time you do a crowd control race? Starting with you, Koi.
People don't really get how bad the control inversion is. Like, I think one time before like the very end did anybody even try to invert my controls. It is really, really, really challenging to mess with the control inversion, especially when there's 3 different types and it's not always very clear which it is or when it wears off.
Yeah, we certainly saw a couple of unintended going back down manual stairs, or some
Mapping.
checking to see if you're really in the AGA 2 room or not.
What gets me is the button inversion specifically. I think I was in Hera when I got hit by that and accidentally mirrored my way back to the beginning.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, if you have mirror out, that is probably the worst that can happen to you, because it's so easy to accidentally hit the wrong button and boom, suddenly you're back at the entrance of the dungeon and you don't know what the crap just happened.
But just, big tip for chat. Next time you're doing a crowd control race, if you really want to mess with the runners, swap those controls and change it up. Don't do the same one every time.
Yeah, for sure. So once again, I want to thank you both, Koi and Ben Crichton, for volunteering for this and subjecting yourself to, the mercy of the chat and all the people who managed to spend some coins on making it a little bit harder for you. It definitely was an exciting race, and despite everything that happened, it came down to only 5 seconds difference, so it was still extremely close.
I mean, that's the great thing about crowd control, is that I have no confidence in my skills. I would not try to to race against a superior opponent without chat to equalize it.
I really appreciate chat letting me do my silverless part of the fight. Like, they were messing with me before that, but like it was really nice to be able to do serverless without having inverted controls.
It was also really impressive to see you pull that off after kind of like you had to be kind of careful with your second phase again, and so to see you be able to pull off triples after that was a nice sign of consistency for that fight. Definitely something I think anybody who's trying to improve again and should watch.
I figured somebody would send me magic if I messed up too much. Right, chat? You have my back?
Your faith in chat is amazing, I would call it, probably.
I know I had some plants who were looking out for me, I'm pretty sure.
And speaking of which, we couldn't have done this without your chat. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in to watch this, to participate directly. This is, of course, the Crowd Control interactive version of A Link to the Past, and it's accessible to everybody. I believe, I'm pretty sure both of you guys have been doing this regularly on your own streams too, right?
I've done it twice. I like about every other month. I've done one.
Yeah. I try not to do it too often because it feels less special. But yeah, about the same. Every month, every other month.
Yeah, so I mean, folks, if you want to take advantage of that yourself, there are other functions as well. It doesn't have to be A Link to the Past. There are other games you can play with. But a fun way to kind of build a little more buy-in directly with interaction with your chat. And we've had a lot of fun talking about this, of course, Herfy and I, and of course, these two I'm sure have had a measurable amount of fun racing this as well.
Ton of fun.
Yeah, so once again, thank you to both of our racers, Koi and Ben Crichton. Thanks to our tracker, who unfortunately I'm unaware of right now, to be honest.
I believe it was Tall or Tail.
Tala.
Oh, Tale. Oh, okay, nice, very nice. Fellow German, so shout out to that guy. Of course, once again, thank you to all of you guys in chat who helped out, who spent some coins on making life a little harder for these guys, making everything a little more interesting. It was definitely fun to commentate.
So, gentlemen, any final words you'd like to share with the crowd? Any final remarks about their efforts today?
Just thanks for letting me win, I guess.
Yeah, you know, beating Moldorm on ice is just extra satisfying. So
Oh,
thanks for
no.
that one.
And normally you need tickets for that. Well, from everybody here talking about the race and enjoying it and racing in itself, and all the people at Speed Gaming, thank you folks for tuning in. I think this about wraps it up. Later on tonight, I believe we do have something else on this channel. Was it a Mario Maker thing, or I'm trying to remember?
I'm not quite sure what the schedule has to offer for us, but I'm sure there's going to be more fun stuff for you guys to watch on Speed Gaming and all the associated channels, Speed Gaming 1 through, I don't even know what number we're up to at this point.
I think the Mario Maker was earlier. It's like Zelda 1 rando tonight.
Yeah, Z1R at 11 p.m. on this channel. We have a Super Mario Brothers 3 randomizer weekly race on Speed Gaming 2 at 9 p.m. And it looks like Final Fantasy 1 randomizer at 10 p.m. on Speed Gaming 3. So lots of things to watch. I believe if MM2 randomizer is still going, we might end up switching over to that. But otherwise, folks, just remember to follow these channels if you want to catch your notifications, see when the next restreamed race is up and live. And of course, give these runners a follow. They put on a great show for us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, before we tune out, I want to give a big thank you to my co-com Udai. It was a lot of fun, and I hope everyone else had fun as well.
Hey, Herfy's always good peeps. It's always a fun time chatting with you about a race. And we had a lot to talk about. I know it's probably like 3 a.m. where you are, but thanks again for joining me.
Sure is. It's 2:30 in the morning, but it was definitely worth it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Keep sticking around if you're interested in anything else that Udai just mentioned. And once again, thanks to Koya and Ben Crichton. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of
See you, folks.
Bye.